Was a time when someone absolutely deserved to be fired. 1. I'll never forget the woman in the IT department that I had to fire. Susie had been there a long time and her new supervisor built an interesting case against her. Susie would disappear for 4 or 5 hours for a 1-hour meeting, and come back with a fresh haircut. Susie also took many personal phone calls on the company's landline. This was pre-cell phone days. Susie seemed to often need a non-work related ride to another facility of ours several miles away. The driver said he took her 2-3 times a week to her bank. It turns out Susie was running her uncle's travel agency from her office in IT. When I terminated her for theft of company time and resources, her defense was she had a brain tumor. It takes all kinds. 2. I used to work at an urban restaurant as a host many years ago. I worked with a straight couple, James and Bree. Both were in their early 20s. James was a nice guy and a hard worker. Bree, however, was jealous and aggressive. She'd ask me and the other hosts not to seat tables of young women with James, but we ignored her and just did our jobs anyway. One day, James got to serve a table of young, pretty women from one of the local colleges. He's being friendly and maybe mildly flirtatious with the women, and it was definitely nothing inappropriate. Bree, when she sees him flirting with the women, yells at him, basically for just doing his job. He shrugs it off and returns to the table to take their orders. Later, he catches Bree trying to bring them their food when it's ready and stops her, because it's his table to serve and she's being straight up neurotic. Bree flips her shit. She throws the food on the floor in front of the entire restaurant, screams and swears at him, and finally slaps him. In her anger, she even grabbed a plate and smashed it right on James' head, breaking the plate and moderately injuring James in the process. All in the middle of the restaurant. Needless to say, it was her last day. 3. I was working nights at a hotel. One night there was one guest left to check in. When he arrived I gave him his key and directed him to his room. 5 minutes later he was back at reception. There's somebody in that room. I checked the registration card. Definitely the right room. I checked the vacancy sheet. Nobody was supposed to be there. I double-checked my list and selected another room. Apologized and directed him to the new room. He was back at reception 5 minutes later. There's someone in that room as well. Understandably he was annoyed by this point. Recheck my sheets. Both rooms supposed to have been empty. I went with him to the third room. Finally found an empty room. I spoke to the head receptionist before I went home the next morning. When she checked the computer system she found 21 rooms not checked into the system properly. The receptionist from the previous evening was suspended. She called her solicitor claiming she hadn't been shown how to check in properly. The head receptionist had trained her but hadn't made a record of her training, so they had to allow her back. 4. Decades ago I worked at a federal agency in Washington, D.C. This was back in time when secretaries were common and they used typewriters to produce their work. Personal computers were just beginning to be introduced into the federal government. Our particular division had only 2 personal computers, one for the boss's secretary and one to be shared by the remaining secretaries. One of the secretaries monopolized the personal computer. She was a Cuban refugee, having fled when Castro came to power. It became apparent that she was not producing any work for the professionals in the division. After an investigation it was found out that she was running her own secretarial business using the office personal computer, on government time. So, she was fired. She sued for unlawful termination, I guess based upon her national background, Cuban. Her attorney was also Cuban. Both of them had